I'm working on a video about didophobia and its massive implications for the story, but it relies on one small detail that I need to confirm is accurate, and not just a weird misinterpretation by the leaker, so that won't be out until October. In the meantime, I want to make a little bonus thing in order to talk a bit more about a topic I'll be going into in that video, the Fazbear Frights. I'm anticipating a lot of comments telling me that they aren't canon, so I want to explain my stance on each story by creating a web of connections, and countering some arguments I've heard against their canonicity along the way. First things first, though, I'm not going to go into Tales from the Pizzaplex. If you want to know why those stories are all canon, go watch the underscore video I've linked in the description. He explains it better than I could. Everyone on board with that theory now? Well, I hope so, because the rest of this video will be following the assumption that it's correct. And that's because our web of connections begins with one of the Tales from the Pizzaplex stories, that being the very first one, Frailty. Frailty is about a girl with a heart-shaped pendant who was turned into trash after she wished to be lovely. That's awfully specific, considering that a major plot point in the Fazbear Frights epilogues, and the story To Be Beautiful, is that an animatronic named Eleanor goes around for years finding girls that wish to change their appearance, and using heart-shaped pendants to turn them into trash. Frailty serves no purpose in any of the other Tales stories, which are usually very interconnected, so the only reason it would need to exist is to show that Tales from the Pizzaplex is a sequel series to Fazbear Frights. So now we know that Frailty is connected to Be Beautiful, and To Be Beautiful is connected to the Frights epilogues. And right off the bat, we get a huge expansion to the web. You see, the Frights epilogues make references to many Fazbear Frights stories. The full list is Into the Pit, To Be Beautiful, which we already have, Count the Ways, Fetch, Out of Stock, 1:35 a.m., Step Closer, Dance With Me, The Man in Room 1280, Blackbird, The Real Jake, and Hide and Seek. Now, let's pause for a second, because there are 4 stories on that list that I see a lot of people take issue with. Number 1, Into the Pit. People say this story can't be canon because the past events Oswald sees in the ball pit aren't accurate to the real missing children incident. However, we see in the epilogues that the ball pit has a tendency to show inaccurate memories. 1:35 a.m. and The Man in Room 1280 are both portrayed differently in the ball pit than in the actual stories. Plus, on the other hand, Help Wanted makes a reference to this story's portrayal of the incident. In Pizza Party, we find the animatronics lined up against the wall in a back room with party hats, which is how Oswald finds the kids. Both of them share similarities because both of them are warped versions of the same event. Number 2, Count the Ways. This one is the easiest to explain. People think it can't be canon because Funtime Freddy is in it, but he should be Molten Freddy at this point. But there isn't just one Funtime Freddy. In Special Delivery, there are multiple Funtime Freddy animatronics, and they repeat lines word for word from Count the Ways.
Scream all you want, no one will hear you! There's nothing I want from you, except your life!
Number 3, Dance With Me. This story takes place around modern day in Tennessee, but it has Circus Baby's Pizza World in it. That can't be right, can it? Actually, it can. In Help Wanted, when you die, you get various post-death messages from Fazbear Entertainment. Usually it's stuff like, "These are completely fictitious scenarios," and "Nothing was ever proven in a court of law." But one of them says, "Be sure to visit our sister location." And no, I didn't capitalize sister location. It's like that in the game. It seems like, just as Freddy Fazbear's Pizza made a comeback after Pizzeria Simulator, so did Circus Babies. And again, in Special Delivery, they're making the fun times like it's nothing, so opening new Circus Babies locations shouldn't be a problem for Fazbear Entertainment at this point. Number 4, The Man in Room 1280. We see William post-fire in this story, but he still has both of his arms and hands. That sure sounds like an inconsistency, and it kind of is, but it's also not really all that strange. William didn't have any bones in Five Nights at Freddy's 3, but he had them in Pizzeria Simulator. Michael lost all his bones and many of his organs in Sister Location, but he was still able to walk. And William in the novels was able to survive having his organs punctured and his lungs filling with blood until he drowned in it with just some scars. Also, Frailty showed us that Remnant can fully heal sick people in hospitals. It's not too far-fetched to say that Andrew keeping William alive resulted in the partial healing of his body, or it's just that the writer of the story wasn't given a picture of Scraptrap. That's also possible. So, with that out of the way, let's look back at our web. Is this everything we can add? These are all of the stories that are connected to the epilogues, so is that the end? Nope. You see, some stories, despite not connecting to the epilogues, connect to an individual story that's connected to the epilogues, and some connect to stories that are connected to stories that are connected to the epilogues, and, well, actually I think that's as many levels as the web reaches. If you're confused, that's okay. I'll explain exactly how each of these stories connect. First, we have Room for One More. This story mentions a place called the Snack Space, which is present in Into the Pit. These two are definitely connected, so we can draw a green line between the two stories to signify that. The same thing happens in The Cliffs. Robert goes to a store called All Mart, which is present in Dance With Me, so let's add a green line between the two again. Now we get to the possibly connected stories. These ones have things in common, but they're not concrete enough for me to say they're definitely supposed to be in the same universe. First is the new kid. In this story, there's a body with curly black hair inside of an old Fredbear suit, and a mysterious kid who's said to look like a humanized Golden Freddy, who talks a lot about justice and revenge. This feels like a connection to Andrew from The Man in Room 1280, but it's a really weird open-ended story, so it could honestly mean anything. Because of that, I'll use a yellow line to indicate that maybe they're connected. Next is He Told Me Everything. This one takes place in a town that used to have a mill, but it shut down a long time ago. That sounds like the town from Into the Pit, which also used to have a mill until it shut down. So maybe they're the same town? Or maybe it's just a recycled plot point. Finally, we have the weakest connection, the Puppet Carver. This one has an antagonist that comes across as very similar to Fazgoo, the same antagonist from He Told Me Everything. That means that if He Told Me Everything is canon, then this story might also be canon. But I think the resemblance to Fazgoo is probably a coincidence. In He Told Me Everything, the Fazgoo steals the protagonist's body parts, but in the Puppet Carver, the supposed Fazgoo is a clone that exists at the same time as the protagonist. So I'm gonna use orange here to signify a very weak, but still technically possible connection. So let's look at our updated list. Into the Pit, To Be Beautiful, Count the Ways, Fetch, Out of Stock, 1:35 a.m., Room for One More, The New Kid, maybe, Step Closer, Dance With Me, The Man in Room 1280, Blackbird, The Real Jake, Hide and Seek, The Cliffs, He Told Me Everything, maybe, and The Puppet Carver, maybe, but probably not. I find it funny how they just kind of drop off after book 7, like the rest of them were just written for the sake of having more books. So anyway, that's all the connections there are. So what can we do with the rest of the stories? Can we just assume they're canon? Some of them you can if you want to, but there are a few that absolutely can't be canon because they contradict the games. And I don't mean minor contradictions like the timeline weirdness from the storyteller, or William's second hand in The Man in Room 1280. I mean ones that would completely break the story. There are 4 of these: Coming Home, In the Flesh, What We Found, and Prankster. Coming Home changes Susie's backstory, appearance, and fate. She's freed just a year after her death, which doesn't fit at all with the game lore of the missing children. In the Flesh portrays Springtrap as a random game designer's OC, despite the fact that he's a real thing in the games. What We Found completely changes Five Nights at Freddy's 3, shortening it to one night and killing off the protagonist in an oven instead of setting the whole building on fire. The game and the story just can't coexist. Prankster is a completely butchered retelling of the hidden tapes from Help Wanted, where Jeremy is the one who finds the severed human face instead of being the one to cut it off. Also, he's named Jeremiah, and his co-workers exclusively refer to him as such. The only time the name Jeremy is used is when a cake gets his name wrong. Also, Felix the Shark, The Scoop, and You're the Band are advertised as scrapped stories, so they're automatically off the table. That still leaves a lot of stories unaccounted for. Lonely Freddy, Bunny Call, The Breaking Wheel, Gumdrop Angel, Sergio's Lucky Day, Jump for Tickets, Pizza Kit, Friendly Face, Sea Bonnies, Together Forever, Find Player 2, and good old Kids at Play. The only reason we can't put them anywhere is because they don't connect to anything, though, so it doesn't matter one way or the other if they're canon, and it's not really worth debating. So after all that, here is the web I've created. I'll leave an image link in the description so that you can take a closer look at it if you want to. And I'll see you in October with the Didophobia video. Unless the full story debunks it. I really hope that doesn't happen though, because it took a long time to write that script, and I really strained my voice recording it.